The Smoking Mirror, Chapter 4. As his sister read, Johnny felt prickles of nostalgia along his skin, her voice gradually taking on the rhythms and intonation of their mother's speech. It was like Veronica Quintero de Garza was in the room at that precise moment, sharing her innermost thoughts. Today, Mom told me the craziest thing. Like her, I'm a shapeshifter, a Nahual. I didn't want to believe her, but then she shifted into a jaguar right in front of me. She was orangey gold with a white belly and black spots. Only her eyes were the same light brown, though with a little shimmer. Mom shrugged off her pink dress and prowled around for a while, then went into the bathroom. She came out a few minutes later in human form, wearing a bathrobe. What the heck, Mom? How long have you been like this? Since I was your age, Beto. On my side of the family, there's a Nahual born every generation to the previous shapeshifter, unless she doesn't have children. In that case, one of her sisters will bear the new one. But how did you know it was me and not Sandra, Andrea, or Carlos? I didn't. Not until a month ago when I saw you wandering the peach grove. What are you talking about? It's been months since I was out there. No, sweetie, you've been visiting it every night for the past 5 weeks. Hunting. You mean I've been shifting into a jaguar like you? Mom shook her head and explained. It takes time for a Nahuatl to fully transform. At first, we begin partially shifting, each change introducing more and more animal characteristics. After a few months, the process is complete. Learning to control your ability is another story, however. What emerges when you transform is your tonal, your beast soul. Everyone has one, but very few can perceive it. Even fewer can allow it to come forward into this physical world. For most Nahuales, this is a natural process, like what you're going through, but a small number of sorcerers learn to pull their tonal through their flesh. Wait, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sorcerers? So not only do were-jaguars exist, but witches too? What else? Vampires? Mermaids? Unicorns? Mom smiled at me, not the sort of reaction I had expected or wanted. Almost all the old stories are true, Beto. But people hunted most of the time these ancient creatures into hiding or extinction long ago. And were jaguars? No, that's something totally different. But you're getting me off track. What I'm trying to tell you is that it is difficult to control your tonal. You're not used to having a conscious awareness of that aspect of your being. That's why you don't remember anything about your transformations. But now that I know, won't I start remembering? Won't I be aware? To a small degree, yes. But it takes a lot of practice, sweetie. I can guide you somewhat, but we're going to have to enlist the help of more knowledgeable folk. She didn't explain what she meant, but she promised she'd be with me in the grove tonight, in jaguar form. Now that I've jotted all this down, I'm going to try to get some sleep. I mean, close my eyes and let my beast soul take over, or whatever. Good night. Johnny leaned forward. His heart was racing and his palms tingling. Whoa, so I'm a Nahual too, huh? He looked at his grandmother, who smiled crookedly and swiveled her head around to stare at Carol. Johnny, there's something I need to tell you. Carol's face was flushed, and she dropped her gaze to the tiled floor. Johnny understood right away. Wait, no way. You two? Dude! You probably think this is totally cool, don't you? Carol had her normal, I don't approve of your boyish enthusiasm face on. Hello, of course I do. Are you nuts? We get to transform into big freaking cats. How is that not cool? Well, it sounds like Abuela Elga was pointing out some pretty major drawbacks back in 1988, Johnny boy. Just keep reading. Girls, I swear. Narrowing her eyes, Carol continued. So I remember bits and pieces now. Smells mainly. Specifically, the smell of blood. The sound of a beating heart. The sense of my mother racing ahead of me, showing me how to flush a brace of jackrabbits. This morning, she was sitting at the foot of my bed, smiling. You're almost completely a jaguar now when you transform. Do you remember? I told her I did. Good. Pretty soon we'll take a trip to Monterrey to visit your cousins. At least, she whispered, that's what we'll tell your dad. In reality, we're going to visit the Garcia Caves. Some experts in these matters can be found there. Who, the tour guides? There isn't anyone living up on Friar Mountain, Mom. It's in the middle of a national park. I'm more interested in the folk living inside the mountain, Beto. But you'll see what I mean soon enough. I ignored her cryptic remark for a moment. Why do we have to lie to Dad, though? Doesn't he know what you are? Mom's eyes got all misty, and she glanced away. He knows. That's that's how we met. It was the late 60s during the student movement, civil rights protests, pro-labor rallies, meetings to promote equality for women. He was a captain in the army then. His men, searching for secret anarchist meetings and so forth, found my mother and some other Nahuales. And, oh, sweetie, they killed them. Then they began to investigate their families. Your dad tracked me down. I was studying at UNAM in Mexico City. He pretended to be a graduate student. I fell for him. He's pretty handsome, you know. She laughed a little. Anyway, I guess he couldn't go through with turning me in or whatever. When he told me the truth, I hated him a little. But by then I had no choice. I had to be with him. He could protect me in ways I couldn't protect myself. He made me swear to stop transforming. I never told him it was hereditary, but I'm guessing he knows. We haven't spoken of it in 20 years. I was so angry at my dad at that moment. I wanted to run into his office and confront him, tell the super important Colonel Quintero what I thought about him. But my mother took my hand and stroked my hair. It's the nature of things, Vero. Nahuales, like other magical creatures, have been slaughtered throughout the history of Mexico. We are blamed for awful tragedies, and occasionally we have been guilty. And that's why it's very important that you never speak of the secret with anyone, not even your siblings, especially not your father. You can't leave any record of our lore either. It has to be kept here and here. She touched my head and heart. But I can't keep this inside me. I'll go crazy thinking about it. That's why I hunted up the diary Dad bought me last year. I never wrote in it, never had secrets up until now. And I'm using it to find relief. I'm excited. I'm scared. I want to cry. I want to laugh. Tonight, Mom will be with me again, running free under the silvery moon. I'm going to try to remember more. And when she takes me to the mountain, I'm going to learn everything I can. Johnny stood up and mused aloud. The Garcia Caves. Dad said they used to be underwater grottos like millions of years ago. Remember how he wanted to take us to see them in 5th grade? Carol nodded. Yeah, and Mom got all panicky and said no, that it was too dangerous or something. Their grandmother muttered excitedly. Johnny knelt beside her. The caves are important, yeah? A tear welled up in the old woman's good eye. Bayan. Johnny nodded and glanced over at his sister, who was slipping through the remaining pages. She wants us to go, Carol, to the caves. Holding up the diary, she pointed to a blank page. There are just a few more entries and then nothing. Did you catch her, Abwe? Is that what happened? You took it away to protect her? Tears were now rolling down their grandmother's face. Before she could attempt to say anything further, Andrea walked in. Kids, it's time for... As her voice trailed off, she rushed to her mother. What happened? Why is she crying? A little panicked, Johnny blurted, We don't know. We were talking about Mom, and then she got like this. Well, shoo, both of you. It's not good for her to get this worked up. Go wash your hands. Dinner's on the table. She began making soft, reassuring sounds as she embraced the old woman and tried to console her. Carol closed the journal and pressed it to her side as she walked out of the room. Johnny followed. By the time she was wheeled to her place at the table, their grandmother had grown calm, a peaceful expression softening the lines on her face. making her look as Johnny remembered from the early years of his childhood. In a few months, he would become a teen, but he suspected that he would never be able to forget how his grandmother had fostered his love for building, buying him blocks and Legos and model kits of buildings and bridges. She understands me. It was tough seeing her become an invalid. I didn't want to face it, but now I've got to understand her. There's something important here, and not just that me and Carol are shapeshifters. She needs us to do something in the caves. After dessert, Stephanie wanted them to go with her to the movies, but the twins begged off, saying that they were exhausted and wanted to turn in early. They sat down across from each other on narrow guest beds cushioned with thick San Marcos blankets and said nothing for the longest time. We have to go to the caves, Johnny finally said. Carol nodded. She definitely wants us to go. I guess you want to learn to master this whole shapeshifting thing, huh? For such a smart chick, she can be really dense. Not just that, Carol. There's something else. Why was Mom scared to return to the caves? I think, I don't know, but I think we can find out what happened to her there. Johnny, those old grottos are 4 hours away from Donna. That's not how she disappeared. Johnny kicked off his Converse high tops. Dude, I know that. But maybe there are clues, or maybe these mysterious folk that Grandma mentioned to Mom know something. Does she ever say who they are in the diary? Carol let the pages slip through her fingers. Nah, the entries stop right before they take their trip. Well, we'll have to find out for ourselves. When we head back to Monterrey, let's get Andrea to stop. We'll tell her we want to sightsee. Carol slid the diary into her knapsack and pulled out her smartphone. So, jaguars. Yikes. I guess it explains the spots I saw on you. Johnny reached for the phone, started scrolling through the photos. Yeah, I can see it now. He paused on a close up of his transforming face. A broad bridge over the nose, rounded feline ears, golden downy fur ringing his face. I'm like a jaguar man or something, like the difference between a werewolf and a wolf man. Yeah, more like a jaguar boy. You don't turn 13 until September. Even then, man is going to be a bit of a stretch. Johnny threw a pillow at her. Ha ha. Tonight's your turn, Mensa. I'll stay up and use my tablet to record you. It's got better resolution than your cheap phone anyway. Then we can make fun of how you look, okay? They made preparations and then hit the sack. It took forever for Carol to fall asleep. She's such a freaking night owl. Johnny had gone down to the nearest deposito and picked up a 2-liter soda and a bunch of gancitos. He set to munching on the chocolate pastries and swigging the caffeine and sugar-laden drink while sketching a building whose curved ceilings were reminiscent of enormous caves. Eventually, the sugar rush wore off. He struggled to stay alert, but his eyes kept shutting. He would jolt awake with a start, only to find Carol still asleep and still fully human. Just when he was about to give up on a surveillance, however, she growled, and all grogginess left him as he lifted the tablet and pressed record. Carol was crouching on her bed, sniffing at the air. Pointed ears set high on her skull, and her jaw had stretched into a snout. Her arms were covered in gray fur with tan and black highlights or markings, ending in claws that dug into the blanket. She tilted her head and stared at him. Carol, you don't look like a jaguar to me, he muttered, his voice trembling. She snapped her jaws, then leapt from the bed, landing in a crouch on the floor near the open window. Ignoring the ladder they propped against the house, Carol dove into the night. Johnny rushed to the windowsill. His sister was loping off with the peach grove. When she reached the first few trees, she tilted her head back and howled. Dude, Johnny muttered, flipping the tablet around to record his annoyance. How come she gets to be a wolf? He glanced down again and gasped. A jaguar sat in the sandy dirt, staring up at him. It gestured with its head as if inviting him down. Then it turned and ran after his sister. Could that be? His heart racing, Johnny lay down, trying to fall asleep. Adrenaline was coursing through his veins. This is insane. I need to transform. I've got a blank in my mind. He plugged his earbuds in and dialed up some soothing electronica. It did nothing. His frustration was overwhelming. And then, finally, he dropped into the dark.